Today we are conducting a forensic audit on U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. First, we'll analyze his sudden voluntary agreement to testify before the House Oversight Committee and the evidence that proves he lied about cutting ties with Jeffrey Epstein in 2005. Second, we will look at the shocking insider trading allegations involving his son Brandon Lutnick, who reportedly bet millions of dollars that his father's own tariff policies would be struck down by the Supreme Court. And finally, we'll examine the massage table defense, why Lutnick's attempts to downplay his visits to Epstein Island as family picnics are collapsing under the weight of newly unredacted emails. I'm Camilo Motato, reporting for Thu News. As a certified public accountant, I know that the most dangerous entry in any ledger is a material misstatement. If a CFO tells the board they ended a partnership with a toxic vendor, but the bank statements show lunch meetings and wire transfers years later, that's fraud. Today, we aren't just looking at political drama. We are auditing the man who holds the keys to the American economy. Howard Lutnick is the architect of the Liberation Day tariffs, but it turns out his own personal history is filled with liabilities he tried to keep off the books. Let's look at the first audit failure. Howard Lutnick previously told Congress and the public that he cut ties with Jeffrey Epstein in 2005. His story was dramatic. He claimed he visited Epstein's New York townhouse, saw a gross massage table, and vowed to never be in a room with him again. But as an accountant, I follow the paper trail. The Justice Department files released in January tell a completely different story. We have emails from 2011, 2012, and 2013. We have plans for drinks, plans for lunches, and business deals. Lutnick didn't just see him once. He remained in a social and professional orbit with a convicted sex offender for nearly a decade after he claimed to have cut ties. In my profession, if you misrepresent the extent of a relationship to Congress, it's not just a mistake, it's perjury. This is where the defense becomes truly desperate. Lutnick recently admitted to visiting Epstein's private island, Little St. James, in December 2012. His defense? He was on a family vacation and only spent an hour there for lunch with his wife, children, and nannies. He even called it absurd to suggest anything untoward was happening. But let's audit the context of the transaction. By 2012, Epstein was already a convicted pedophile. He was a registered sex offender. Why would the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald take his children to an island that was already known in elite circles as a rape villa? Even more damaging is the evidence that Lutnick lied about being never alone with Epstein. A photograph surfaced in the files, which the DOJ briefly removed and then put back, showing Lutnick on the island alongside Epstein and several other men. No wife, no children, and no nannies in sight. As a CPA, I look for corroborative evidence. If your testimony says family lunch, but the photo shows a boys' club on a sex trafficker's island, your credibility is at zero. This isn't just about social visits. It's about co-investment. The Epstein files show that in December 2012, the same month as the island visit, Lutnick and Epstein were in business together. They both signed a contract to acquire stakes in an advertising technology company called Adfin. Lutnick's spokesperson tried to claim it was a small minority investment and that Lutnick didn't know who the other investors were. But look at the signature pages. Their signatures appear on neighboring pages. As a professional auditor, I find it impossible to believe that the chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald, a man who prides himself on being a master dealmaker, didn't perform basic due diligence on who his partners were in a private equity deal. They weren't just neighbors, they were business associates, years after the 2008 conviction. Lutnick isn't just a friend of Epstein, he is the cheerleader-in-chief for Trump's global tariffs. He is the man telling you that paying 15% more for your groceries is a patriotic duty. But while he was on television selling you the Liberation Day tariffs, his own department was in chaos. Staff members are calling him a menace and describing strict communication controls where no one is allowed to speak without his direct clearance. From a management audit perspective, Lutnick is running the Commerce Department like a private fiefdom, using the same information asymmetry he used to hide his Epstein ties to push through economic policies that are now being struck down by the Supreme Court. Now, let's look at the most explosive part of this audit, the appearance of profiteering. While Howard Lutnick was on television as the Commerce Secretary, telling the American public that tariffs are not going away, his son Brandon Lutnick, the current chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald, was reportedly betting millions of dollars that those same tariffs would be struck down by the Supreme Court. As a CPA, I recognize this as a potential insider trading framework. Internal documents reveal that Cantor Fitzgerald was buying up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. They were essentially telling importers, we'll give you $2 million now for your $10 million refund claim because we know the Supreme Court is going to rule these tariffs illegal. If Howard Lutnick, as the architect of the policy, knew the legal hand of the administration was weak, and his son's firm used that non-public insight to secure a 3- to 5-fold return on taxpayer-funded refunds, we are looking at a systemic breach of federal ethics laws. You cannot champion a policy in public while your family business bets on its failure in private. That is a conflict of interest that no amount of voluntary testimony can easily resolve. Beyond Epstein and tariffs, Lutnick is the face of a new and highly controversial government product, the Trump card. This is a proposed $5 million path to citizenship that would replace the EB-5 visa program. Lutnick has been touting this on podcasts, claiming it's a way to help America pay off its debt. From a valuation of sovereignty perspective, this is a radical shift. Lutnick claimed that 200,000 of these cards is $1 trillion. But as a professional auditor, I have to ask, where are the guardrails? Critics have warned that this is essentially selling American democracy to the highest bidder, potentially allowing Russian oligarchs or other high-risk individuals to bypass traditional vetting for a $5 million fee. When the man managing this program is the same man who forgot he visited a sex trafficker's island in 2012, the Know Your Customer protocols of the United States government are officially in crisis. James Comer's announcement on Tuesday didn't stop with Lutnick. He has now called on 7 other high-profile individuals for transcribed interviews, including Bill Gates, former White House counsel Catherine Rumler, and Clinton aide Doug Band. This tells us that the Epstein audit is expanding into the tech and legal sectors. Catherine Rumler, for instance, reportedly told Epstein in an email that she adored him years after his conviction. As a CPA, I see this as a systemic clearing of the elite class. The Oversight Committee is finally realizing that the paper trail doesn't care about your political party or your net worth. Whether you are the architect of the nation's tariffs or the founder of Microsoft, the ledger must balance. Lutnick's voluntary testimony is just the first domino in a much larger collapse of the Epstein class. The revelation that the DOJ briefly removed a photo of Lutnick on Epstein's island, only for it to be restored after public outrage, is a testament to the ongoing cover-up. We have the substance over form rule in accounting. The true nature of a transaction is what matters, not how it's labeled. Lutnick labeled his 2012 visit a family lunch. The data shows business contracts, social drinks, and a billionaire's yacht anchored at a crime scene. Lutnick's limited interactions defense is a moral default. He ignored the warnings of the public record and the skeptics around him to maintain a relationship with a predator. Now, as the architect of an economic policy that is costing American families billions, his lack of judgment in his personal life is reflected in his lack of stability in his professional role. The final audit of Howard Lutnick in March 2026 shows a man whose credibility asset has hit zero. Between the lies about cutting ties in 2005, the family picnics on Epstein Island, and his son's firm betting against his own tariffs, the evidence of unfitness for office is overwhelming. The $175 billion in tariffs collected from American businesses is a debt that the government now has to pay back. And firms like Cantor Fitzgerald are standing there ready to profit from the mess. As a CPA, I can tell you, you cannot restore an economy if you cannot trust the people managing the books. But I want to hear from you. Do you believe voluntary testimony will actually bring transparency? Or is this just more damage control from the Trump card architect? Should a Commerce Secretary remain in power when his own family firm is betting on the failure of his policies? Let me know in the comments. Your voice is the only audit that counts in a system built on secrets. I'm Camilo Motato, Certified Public Accountant for Thu News. Thank you for joining me for this 10-minute deep dive into the truth they want to keep redacted. Subscribe, stay informed, and stay safe.